Hey, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast right here on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and please join me in welcoming back my co-host, they're Big Josh and Little Richard of P3 Radio. Guys, how are we doing this week?
Oh, it's early. It's earlier than it was last week, Gene. I don't know what happened. It just feels different this week, you know?
I'm awesome. I don't know what Richard Lee's talking about. I've been up for so long. I've done so much already.
It feels different. Maybe I have mono. Maybe that's what it is, but it just feels different this week. I don't know.
Man,
we have so little these days, and now they're robbing us of time. So hurts my feelings.
Hey, at our age, that's the most valuable fucking thing, right?
Ain't that the truth?
Damn government cutbacks.
Oh, well, before this goes down a depressing road, let's just move past that comment. I'm going to plug this right at the beginning because once again this week, we didn't get any voicemails, which hurts my feelings because this episode really could have used it. So, and not to get Richard tickled for 10 minutes like we did last week at the end of the show, but remember, you can dial 256 Egg Iron. Leave us a voicemail, whether it's an impression or your opinions or reviews of the show, either our show or the show that we're watching, or just anything. Whatever's on your mind, we don't give a shit. We like to hear from you. So remember, 256 Egg. Remember, we did not choose that number. We did not request that number. It's really strange coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on.
Talk about your eggs and your irons. That's great.
Right. I mean, that is a valuable commodity these days, right? Eggs are one of the most expensive things a person can buy. So I guess that kind of makes our phone number seem somewhat important, maybe.
And an iron's not that cheap either these days. Yeah. But hey, have you talked? I want to hear sometime, just for our benefit at some point, just give that number with no context to Tommy. And just record him trying to make sense of it. That would be great.
Please call this number and leave a message. It's 256.
I'm gonna have to hang up, man. I think I'm having a stroke. Things ain't making sense.
Yeah. The no context is the key part because I mean I can just see him. I can see most anybody really, anybody you could name if you just gave them that number, like, hey, call this number, leave a voicemail, and they're like, Egg Iron. What does that even mean? Like, don't worry about that. Just call it. It's almost egg irony, if you will. But anyway, so guys, this week's episode is full of first as we revisit September 25th, 1993. It's the first episode of USWA Championship Wrestling that we've covered this year, where there's no Monday night card to promote. There's no Sunday night card to promote. We don't have anything coming up this week, so that's going to be interesting and put a different twist on our review at the end of the show. Also, this show will be the very first ever studio matches in the whole history of Memphis wrestling that will take place inside of a steel cage. Sorta. Really more of a dog pen of sorts. Okay, not of sorts. It's just a fucking dog pen around ringside this week, and we're calling it a steel cage because I guess that's where we're at right now in our time frame of USWA. Feels kind of desperate. I don't know. What did you guys think whenever you see this cage around ringside?
I felt like it was one of those situations where, you know, whoever's idea it was like, yeah, we'll do it. And I'll get the cage in there in the studio. It'll be great. And then the guys get there and they look and they're like, cage? This looks like shit. And he's like, well, technically it is a cage. Yeah. I didn't say how high it was going to be.
You know what it reminded me of is like what it almost reminded me of, you know, how like Johnny Cash used to go and play these prisons and they'd put up the fence and chicken wire.
Yeah.
But except they were like, we only got a 6-foot fence. And they were like, well, that'll keep them out. Have you seen the clientele that come to these shows? They ain't climbing a 6-foot fence.
I do feel like they like hatched this plan, kind of like what Josh referred to, maybe earlier in the week. They're at a spot show somewhere, and they get there Saturday morning, like, yeah, we're gonna put a cage up. And Corey's like, how the hell you think I'm gonna get a cage in there? You see how low the roof is? And then they go and look like, oh shit, well, we've already promised Jarrett, and
they went to
figure something else. Yeah, they run to Lowe's and get a dog pen.
Oh man.
So
Can you imagine though if somebody ran into that cage hard, as slick as that floor is? That would have killed and diced like 12 people in the front row.
You ain't kidding. They'd go straight through it. Although they may have went and bought the cage that morning, but the chain they locked it with, it's been around a while.
Dude.
That lock looks like it's 30 years old. That chain's rusted. What the hell are we doing?
Eddie had to get a tetanus shot after locking that cage up. I have a screenshot of that. I think that is so awesome. You noticed that as well. I have a screenshot of my phone, and I was fixing to send it to the group. I was like, I'll just talk about it tomorrow. There you go.
My guess was they said, hey, does anybody have a lock and a chain? And Neighbors was like, well, I got one out in the car. It's been.
I'm gonna need it back.
Yeah.
Got some important memories on that chain. I mean, with that chain.
You leave that.
There's a lot of evidence. I mean, just give it back. All right.
Yeah. You leave that woman's left leg unhooked for long enough, she's gonna find a way out. Ask me how I know.
It's rusted from her tears.
So Dave and Corey welcome us to the show and let us know that we'll be seeing Mike Anthony versus Tony Falk. Brian Christopher will be teaming up with PG-13, and we get our very first mention ever of Midget D. So that should be interesting. Plus, we're going to see the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett, taking on the new USWA heavyweight champion, Tommy Rich, here in the studio. And also in the studio, we're going to see the Moondogs taking on the Dog Catchers, which I know you guys had to be pretty damn excited to hear about that one. And then Dave lets us know that those two matches, they're going to be steel cage matches. So Boss Paul comes out and says there ain't going to be no title matches today, but Eddie Marlin tells him to fuck off with that shit because there will be 2 title matches right here in the studio, and the fans are pretty psyched about it despite looking directly at what they're calling a steel cage. And Dave ends up making it clear that the difference between a regular match and a cage match is what, Richard?
That's what I was going to say. Now, what makes it different is the door is going to go from here to here.
Unpenetrable. No way.
Unless you have a key.
Unless you have a key, or you have the ability to climb a 4-foot fence, a 5-foot fence, as we find out later. Mike Anthony does. But anyway, we don't want to spoil it. We'll get there in due time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You said Midget D. A lot of people would be surprised to know that Midget D is bigger than what you think. Sorry, that was a joke. I was holding on for a minute.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Midget D is bigger than what you think.
I've unfortunately been in a couple of dressing rooms where I've seen some Midget D, and they're usually quite proud of it. And, God's little ironic joke, I guess.
Had to have 3 socks, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's got to make it up to him somehow, right? It's like, all right, look, here's a trade-off here.
Sign 3 autographs at the same time.
So, yes, you guys are going to be seeing some Midget D later in this show, but not like it sounds. So we return from that first quick break that we always take. And we go directly to a video, and we find out that when the USWA does return to the Mid-South Coliseum on October 4th, Macho Man Randy Savage will be returning as well. And we see another nice, what felt like unusually long video of Macho Man highlights from the WWF. Felt like we got the extended version this week. I don't know.
Sleeping on a bus and shit.
Get him doing everything. Vince, he's asleep.
You just see the door open and he's taking a shit, and they're like, "No, get out of here!"
No. Yeah. So little peek into the life of Macho Man, every aspect of it. But we come out of that video. Dave welcomes out Brian Christopher and Miss Simpson. So in case you didn't listen to last week's show all the way to the end, you're scratching your head just like Dave was here. What the hell is Miss Simpson doing out here with Brian Christopher? Last week, she's out here slapping him. She's threatened to bring in the Phantom of the Opera to wrestle him and Miss Robin. So if you stuck around at the end of last week's show, you found out that match never happened for a couple of reasons. One, Brian had been having some health issues. That's why a couple of his recent matches had been kind of unceremoniously canceled at the last moment. He'd been like coughing up blood. He's had a lung issues, what they said. But I guess he was getting over that. But the other issue that arose was Miss Robin, who was scheduled to be Brian's partner and Miss Simpson's opponent through all this feud, just up and quit the company. She left town. So, we could go find another heel woman for Brian to just trot another woman out there, but they decided, no, we're going to do the most ridiculous choice and just have these two just make up. And now they're back together. But Brian said he figured out what the problem was, guys. His problem was he tried to get another woman to be her nanny. And everyone knows that women don't get along with women, which Dave Brown would not co-sign that, which proves he may be smarter than you think, even though he was the suspected Phantom of the Opera about Josh. Nonetheless, he would not agree with Brian, but I would, and I think most people on the screen right now probably would, that women don't always get along with women. He might be onto something here. I don't know. But anyway, we haven't heard much out of Brian or Miss Simpson. We heard a little bit of them last week, but I felt like this might be a good time to hear what Brian and Miss Simpson have to say to try to explain this whole awkward debacle. So check this out.
A few weeks ago, let me just say that I don't usually forgive and forget. And I know that a couple of weeks ago, she came out here and she slapped me right on my pretty little face. I remember that. But I don't blame her for it, because I had that fat, good-for-nothing Miss Robin is the one I blame for her getting upset at me. I had Miss Robin out here, was supposed to be her personal nanny and take care of her and do what she wanted. But did she do that? No. All she wanted to do was cause problems and cause dissension. I guess I overlooked a girl and another girl. They ain't gonna get along, right, Dave? Girls don't usually get along, do they, huh? I asked you a question, Dave. I asked you a question.
You're answering your own questions. I'm not going to answer that one.
They don't usually get along, and that's what happened. But the big news, Dave, I got big news. Today, I'm looking for her a new nanny. But it's not going to be a female. I need somebody to do all the washing and all the cleaning for her, but it's not going to be a female. See, these females out here, these sweat hogs sitting out here, they look like they need to do some washing. They need to do some cleaning, but I don't need you. What I'm looking for today is a male. I want a male valet for her to take care of her, do all the cleaning, all the washing, all the laundry, all the mopping. Dave, guess what? You dress nice. You look okay. You look presentable, I guess. Dave Brown, I'm going to give you the chance of a lifetime. Would you like to be Miss Simpson's new personal male valet? Come on, Dave. A chance of a lifetime.
No.
Corey, listen to me, Corey. Corey, listen to me. We know that you're the worst TV announcer that's ever sat in that chair.
Hey, come on.
True. That's true. Corey, I'm giving you the chance of a lifetime. He's too stupid. Don't be as stupid as Dave Brown over here. I guess you're content being a weatherman, huh? Corey, would you like to be Miss Simpson's new personal male valet?
No, I don't want
You get to...
That's
Hey,
exactly.
what's up, baby? That's right. Hey, now listen here. I'm looking for a new male valet today, and these two idiots are too stupid to take me up on it. So what I'm asking you guys is, would you all like to be, the three of you, be Miss Simpson's new male valet?
Well, looks like you've got some employees here, Brian.
I don't know, but, well, on second thought, hey, I don't know, I don't trust it. On second thought, I'll tell you what, we got a match, I'll think about it.
Now you got a match. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so a couple of reasons I wanted to show that. Number one, did you hear that groan from the crowd when Brian said, "We're going to find her a new nanny," and everybody's like, "Oh," and I felt the same way when he said it. Dave's reaction whenever he's like, "No," and then when Brian looks at Corey and says, "We all know you're the worst announcer to ever sit in that chair." which to me was the high spot of the whole thing. But then at the end, it was pretty fun when he offers it to PG-13 and they jump at the chance and they're psyched to be Miss Simpson's male valets. What do you think about that whole segment there?
They were trying to give her Midget D. Did you see that? Did I ruin that name for y'all now? It's like...
Definitely put a different spin on it, if you will.
And so, Midget, have you ever seen Midget D spin on it?
Old helicopter. Anyway.
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm over it. I do not care one iota about his nanny situation. You know, I feel like we've dropped the whole nanny thing anyways with, you know, she was a nanny at first and now we just keep on bringing up nannies because she started out that way. It's like, no, just leave it alone to start something else. This blew up horribly and let's just keep going. It's kind of like when somebody screws up a move in the ring and they try to do it again and they screw it up and then they try to do it again. And you're like, I know where this is going. Hell, I could run this spot now. You know, it's like, I'm done with the nanny situation.
Yeah, and obviously the whole, you know, 3 male valets leaving her in the house alone with them. Like he immediately that you could tell that's what he was like. I don't think so.
To me, that was the whole redeeming factor of that segment. Was just, you know, that was pretty fun. But and even to Richard's point, like he went back and forth from nanny to male valet to servant. Like, you know, we're calling it different things as well. But yeah, I mean, I get it. I get where you're over it, and I am to some degree. But I did think the bit with him offering to PG-13 and them being just super excited was pretty fun. Somebody tagged me in this picture of Miss Simpson. I figured I'd share it here, at least for Josh's benefit.
Lord have mercy.
Boy, if I'd have found that back in the day, that'd have been a...
Oh, yeah. She'd have a class action lawsuit for carpal tunnel. I'd have all kind of co-signers.
If you could somehow Buffalo Bill a new face on her, that'd probably do better things for me.
Miss Jennifer's.
Yeah, there you go.
So match number 1 in the steel cage, but it's not locked, so it's not a steel cage match. Brian Christopher and PG-13, along with their Midget D and Miss Simpson, who sometimes they call Tony Adams. She just literally has 2 names now, I guess. Taking on the American Eagles and Jeff Gaylord. So this is our first look at the American Eagles here in the studio this go round. By looking at the results in the Observer, we're rotating. Sometimes the Eagles are Danny Davis and Ken Wayne. Sometimes the Eagles are Ken Wayne and Tony Williams. And you just have to, if you're actually seeing them, you have to just kind of watch them work and you can kind of figure that out. But as far as reading results, you just never know. But pretty fun match here. Wolfie ends up getting the pin on one of the Eagles after interference by, almost don't like saying this name now, Midget D. But again, this is his debut, and just like how they've handled PG-13, God, I don't like to say this now, coming in and out of the promotion. Midget D just walks out here with them as if he's always been here. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, like, hey, we got a midget. There's no, like, look what we found. It's our little homie. I just really like Dave Brown to say, hey, PG-13 and Midget D. Like, he's just always been a part of the team here.
And he was super confident, like, you know, like the BDE. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They gaslit us into thinking there's always been a midget.
This is normal.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Midget D has always been around. And then they pick up the win because Midget D threw something in their face. You know, it was water of some sort. They didn't know what kind of substance it was.
Water.
I know Jamie was sharing it with him as he was walking out. I was like, well, that's not water.
Listen to Jamie describe him over the years is both humorous and problematic for younger people because, I mean, I remember hearing an interview where they talked about, you know, how he first got hooked up with a Gary Springer deal and they called him like, hey, can you get any midgets? Like, yeah, I got a midget. We've had, you know, we've always had us a midget, you know, like it's just like it's a dog in the backyard or something, you know. You see, like, back when me and Wolfie had our midget, you know.
Like he had a little in-law suite
Yeah.
behind the Dundee estate.
He's actually been living with Paul Neighbors, keeping things alive in the shed.
Exactly.
He's the watchman.
Sitting there with a little paddle.
We want to book y'all this weekend. Can y'all bring your midget? Yeah, but that's an extra cost because we got to have his carrier and and uncrate him and all that. But anyway, match number 2, Mike Anthony taking on Tony Falk. But before the match can even get going, Brian Christopher comes out. He tells Falk he's one of the worst wrestlers to ever step in the ring, and he offers Falk the job as being Miss Simpson's manservant / valet / nanny. But Falk just straight up turns him down. So Brian doubles down on telling Tony he is the worst wrestler of all time. And Falk continues to turn him down. And he even had some advice for Brian that if he spent less time chasing women and concentrating on his career, he'd be better off. So Brian tells him he's made the mistake of his life. Probably better lock the cage after this, guys, but we didn't learn. Falk gets in the ring. They start having their match. It's a pretty good little match. Falk's faring a little better than he has been in recent times. But here comes Brian Christopher. He runs in, attacks Tony Falk, and Mike Anthony feels bad for him, so he joins in and helps Tony. They shoot Brian off, give him a double backdrop. So Mike Anthony is disqualified due to the interference of Brian Christopher on his opponent, Tony Falk. So Falk goes over to the desk. He challenges Brian to a singles match right then and there. Frank Morrell decides, hell, we got time. Let's just do it now. So now match number 3 of the day, Brian Christopher versus Tony Falk. And Falk gets some stuff in early. It looks pretty good for Tony Falk here, but until Miss Simpson shows up and interferes. Brian works over Falk a little bit as Tony Adams continues to interfere until Miss Texas comes out to even the odds. And I suppose this is now leading to the oddest mixed tag team match of all time, where apparently it will be Tony Falk and Miss Texas versus Brian and Miss Simpson, Tony Adams. Did you think for one moment when you started watching this week's episode that you were going to see a babyface Tony Falk teaming up with Miss Texas?
I hoped for it, but prayers are answered sometimes, Gene.
That's right. Sometimes you cross your fingers and you say a little prayer and they come true. And boy, they sure did this week, right?
That was a super weird way to get there. If you're following week to week, and I guess it had to be somebody, right? I mean,
Yeah.
And Tony, maybe Tony had Gotch versus Hackenschmidt level fucking matches that we just didn't know about. And they were like, we got to get somebody for Brian. Everybody's gone now. Put old Tony in it. We got to turn him somehow. And it seemed like it was a cool way, just looking at it. I mean, like at first it was cool because it was heel versus heel interaction, where they were kind of being aggressive towards each other. And you don't really get that a lot. But yeah, I thought it was a cool way to kind of do it. It was just really weird out of nowhere.
And what the weird thing was, you have a perfectly good baby face that just came into the territory, 4 weeks ago, right there in the same match.
I just don't think he's ready for it. You know what I mean?
I think somebody must have decided that because, I mean, we already kind of had these two in an angle that never really went anywhere. And here's the perfect reason to put them back together. Instead, we shoehorn heel Tony Falk into it. So that's got to be the findings, right? Like, he's just not ready to work with Brian. I wish we could know whose idea that was, because I figure after Miss Robin quit and they panicked Monday night, like, just go out there and say they made up, and somebody in the back had to be like, say they made up? That's stupid. Well, what are we gonna do from here? I don't know. I'll figure something out. And driving back and forth to spot shows in the next few days, somebody's like, I got it. You know how we got Tony Falk wrestling that really shitty football player? Well, what if we turned him babyface and teamed him with Miss Texas? Like, if you can make that work, go for it. Brian's like, I'll figure it out.
They told that person's like, all right, man, we think you need to check into rehab. I think it's gotten to a point that
don't tell me where to check into. It's not a problem.
The only problem is I can't afford it.
I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take our first podcast commercial break of the day. And then when we come back, it's going to be time for the King, Jerry Lawler.
guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puroresu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
All right, so we come back, and Dave is pitching to a promo from the WWF's Vince McMahon, but a voice from the booth that we've never heard before. I can't remember in all the years of Memphis Wrestling if we've ever heard a voice from the booth go, Dave, they didn't send the tape. It didn't arrive overnight air. And so now Dave's standing there looking like a deer in the headlights, but here comes the king out instead. We haven't heard a promo from Lawler on the show here in a bit. You know, we've talked about him. We've made mention of him. We heard a little piece of one recently on another episode, but let's hear what the king has to say about Vince McMahon and Tonto.
Now, last week, we stood out here and we watched Vince McMahon up in New York City, up in the Big Apple. And boy, he had a silly little grin. You know why he had that stupid grin on his face? Because he's stupid, that's why. He had that stupid grin on his face, and he couldn't wait to pull that coat open and show this unified World Heavyweight Championship belt that Tonto had taken back up there to him. And he couldn't wait to tell everybody that Tonto was undefeated in the World Wrestling Federation. And he couldn't wait to tell everybody that Tonto was coming back to Memphis to give me one more shot at the belt. Well, Vince McMahon, you sit around there with Tonto now, and you eat crow, punk, because I got this belt right back around my waist, and I got it right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, you want to talk a little bit about fiery competition. I remember that interview. He said, oh, you want to talk about fire? He threw fire on the Giant. The king threw fire and exploded the Giant's head, and that I should be banned from wrestling, but he was going to send a real fiery competitor down here. Well, we sent Tonto packing back up to the World Wrestling Federation, and now we want to send a personal invitation to you, Vince McMahon. I would like for you, one more time, to show your ugly face in my town of Memphis, Tennessee, because you want to see some fire. It ain't nothing that would make me happier than for me to set that foolish-looking face of yours ablaze right in the Mid-South Coliseum. Now, I saw earlier a little video of the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Well, let me tell you something, Vince. You send the Macho Man on down to Memphis, because we got something for the Macho Man, haven't we? I love it when you send your big boys down south. I want to see Mr. Perfect. I want to see the Macho Man. Bring Tonto back. Best of all, I'd love for you to send Bret, the Hitman Hart, and his wrinkled-up old Paris. Let them come on down here with him. Because, like I said, in Memphis, Tennessee, the USWA and the King is #1. Don't ever forget it. And if you doubt it, come see me.
Now, wasn't that better than a Vince McMahon interview?
This felt like the meow scene from Super Troopers. Like somebody dared him for a win out there. I bet you can't say Tonto 9 times in one promo. And he's like, watch me.
Yeah. I was so distracted by that neckline on that shirt. It's just, why does he cut out all the necklines? Does he just not like the elasticity of the neckline, or is he trying to show off that sweet jugular vein? What is it?
In this era, he like does that to nearly all his shirts. Like he comes out here week after week with a freaking collar cut out of his shirt, and it's not like he's like Lex Luger, Like I don't know what he's showing off, but he definitely went through a phase where that was a thing that he was doing to all his shirts, and it wasn't flattering. But he seemed pretty fired up this week. He seemed a little more invested than the subdued King that we've seen on TV in more recent weeks. Aside from the constant mentions of Tonto, what y'all think about this promo from Lawler compared to some of the other ones we've seen in recent times?
I thought it was cool that he reciprocated that whole exploded the Giant's entire head rumor again. Like,
Yeah.
if you keep talking about it, then it happened, right? I mean, it's one of those things, kind of like Joe LeDuc became way more infamous than he really was, it seemed, because of all the stories. And if you say it enough, but yeah, it's like he's got the belt again. He's fired up, and like it was a big deal to me, like, because technically Tatanka wasn't undefeated anymore, and as a kid, I was like, oh my God, Lawler pinned Tatanka on TV. We saw that. So that was something really cool to go talk about at school Monday.
You almost said to Tonto.
I wanted to.
My thing is like I missed like 1 week, I guess 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, he blew up the Giant's head. Like that was
Sporting events.
His entire head.
That was what I was telling Josh. It's like apparently Argentinian hair gel is gasoline's. So
his entire head exploded, pal.
I was like, how in the hell they do? Is that why we didn't see him on WWE anymore?
The shit barely reached him, much less exploded his entire head. But all in how you present it, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I thought this was one of Lawler's better promos. Something occurred to me when we're going to see a replay of that match, or at least the ending of that match. And I wondered about this last week. I don't think Lawler and the USWA crew understood the Survivor Series concept, because clearly this must not have been an elimination match, because the only title that changed hands was Lawler winning the title from Tonto, as he called him. If his team would have won, that would have mean the dog catchers would have lost tag belts. Tommy Rich would have lost the heavyweight title. They all still have their belts. So clearly this was a one fall 8-man tag team match, not a Survivor Series match, which I would have been severely disappointed. I mean, we all said we weren't going anyway, but if I would have swerved y'all and been like, screw it, I'm going, I got to go see the Survivor Series match, and then I get there and it's a one fall match, I would have been pissed.
All I could think about was Moondog Cujo going rogue and winning the title. The whole time I was watching the other day, I was sitting there thinking about Josh's statement. He's like, I can't wait to see Moondog Cujo go rogue and win the title. It's like, yeah, like you're saying though, like in reality, that could have happened. Who else was in that match? Moondog was the other. What's that other Moondog's name?
Spike.
Spike's now the new
USWA champion, Cujo's the unified champion.
Yeah. I'm like like when I heard about that, I was like, wait, shouldn't we have all new champions since it was a Survivor Series match? Nope, just one. So
yeah, I wondered about that last week, but I'm like, all right, well, they lined it up where all the former champions are wrestling the current champions, so it'll make sense if the former champions all end up with their belts back. I don't know exactly how you're gonna. I guess you're booking the match. You can make sure that Jarrett pins Rich and Lawler pins Tatanka and Moondog pins the dog catcher. And,
yeah. How would the tag titles work?
I said that. I said that last week. Like, well, do they get to pick who their partner with the belt is, or does it automatically it's the other Moondogs? Because I said that last week. What if Jarrett pins one of the dog catchers? Is him and one of the Moondogs tag champs? Is him and Lawler tag champs? Are they all four like the free birds, and just any version of the four can defend the tag
team champions, brother?
Could you imagine if Cujo won the tag team champions? They're like, well, obviously he's going to pick Spike. He's like, I want Jeff Jarrett.
This is Moondog King and Fabulous Moondog right here with Spock and Cujo. You don't ever know which dogs you're gonna get, brother. I know I ain't getting my hair cut now. But yeah, so that's interesting. Like I said, we're gonna hear a little more. We're not done with Lawler and the Survivor Series match, so we'll save a little bit for later. But next up, oh boy, it's another That's Fabulous video, and this week Jeff joins the host of a TNN show called Be a Star, which no, it isn't a show about bullying, folks. It's the show hosted by a guy named Bobby Randall, who's apparently another member of Sawyer Brown, because, you know, one's not enough. And it's just more of the same shit we've been seeing here week after week. I don't know. They're on the set of a show, so it looks a little more important than when Jeff's just sitting in a, you know, back room with somebody somewhere or whatever. But I mean, what were you guys' take on this? Did you watch it? Did you like it? Did you not give a shit?
I watched it, and I was thinking that maybe like some of the clips were just kind of cut out, because I know you've had to cut out certain WWF parts because of copyright stuff. But so I was thinking maybe Gene snipped some of this, but you didn't, right?
Not knowingly, but now I'll get I'll upload something, and then like a week or 2 weeks or sometimes even a month later, I'll get a email and it'll say a portion of your show has been flagged as copyright, and I can just click a button and it'll cut that out, and I won't even really know what the hell it cut out.
Oh, okay.
So this may be an instance where something like that happened.
Well, yeah, because it was really, really weird. Like Jeff is like, well, let's go and watch what you've done, Bobby. And, you know, it's like 10 seconds worth of Bobby doing one thing. And then they cut back to Jeff, and he's like, wow, that sure was a lot of stuff, Bobby. Hey, you're really fabulous. And
it adds a layer of sarcasm the way that it was edited, though. I like it.
What did I miss?
Whoa, that was something, Bobby.
The same way it happened with Jeff Jarrett. It's like, well, let's watch some of your stuff. 10 seconds later, wow, Jeff, that was amazing. You are fat. And yeah, I was just I was more focused on that than the actual fruit of the product, you know, because it seemed like we were missing something.
I told Joe in the chat that I was fast forwarding through a commercial, and it just popped up, Be a Star. And I was like, the B and the A are so close together. I thought they were promoting a new wrestler called B Star. And I'm like, who is B? They're doing a Golden Girls gimmick. And then
it's Aunt B from Mayberry.
Right. And then all we see is what looks like an infomercial where Jeff Jarrett and this guy are trying to sell you a timeshare. But then they're like basically just kissing each other's ass the whole time about how great they are. Like the whole segment was like, you're great. No, you're great. No, you're great. Well, look, we're here at my show, and I'm telling you, you're great. You know, it's like, okay.
If you don't let me tell you you're great, I'm going to kick your ass, Jeff Jarrett. I swear to God, you're great. No, you're great. No, you're fabulous. But it did seem really disingenuous, just like one of those commercial, like a infomercial type thing. Boy, that sure was some good stuff, Jeff. Man, right. You're fabulous. No, you're fabulous, Bobby. 10 seconds worth of.
And if everybody out there wants to be fabulous, they can sign up for the fabulous timeshare.
Just you can be a star like Fabulous One Jeff Jarrett.
Just call 256 Egg Iron.
And then they just lose their shit laughing. I tell you that number ain't fabulous, Bobby. We don't know where it came from, Jeff, but that's our number.
And he's like, would y'all like to be living in the same building as me and Bobby for the same week in Florida?
Somewhere Paul Neighbors going, I would.
Right.
No, I need somebody to watch the shed.
Damn, we can't ever get our timeshare because fucking Paul Neighbors is up there with all his women.
Or he keeps hiding the bodies out behind the timeshare. They're constantly investigating out there. So since this week's show's got a little extra time, I thought, you know what? We haven't done a watch along in a while. We haven't actually watched a match here on the show in a while. So I figured, hey, why not watch a steel cage USWA heavyweight title match between our friend Wildfire Tommy Rich and our favorite wrestler, the most fabulous wrestler we know, Jeff Jarrett. So here we go. Let's check this out, guys.
Fabulous in the ring right now. The fabulous one set to go with a USWA heavyweight title at stake. And remember,
PVC
fans,
pipe
it's inside the lock
bottom there?
We talked about
I believe so. Oh,
before.
here comes Tommy rocking that awesome title.
Arenas around the country.
That mullet. That's great.
I'll be wearing this ugly belt out here anymore.
And it's certainly the first time there's
God,
ever
that
been
belt is
a
so horrible.
heavyweight title.
Yeah, it is hard.
You ought to be paying me extra, Eddie Marlin, wearing this piece of shit.
Well, he is. He's got to defend.
Old neighbors ought to bury this in the woods instead of them poor girls.
Eddie Marlin.
Now I'm gonna get in here. You get my empanada ready. That's an inside joke. Uh-oh. Here comes the...
Oh, here we go. Locking up the old rusty chain.
I hope he doesn't have a hangnail. It's recently been
The old rusty chain kind of sounds like a euphemism, doesn't it?
He's gonna wake up with lockjaw tomorrow morning. I thought the car wreck was bad.
First he gave her the Midget D, and then she got the old rusty chain. If you know what I mean. I think you do.
Could they have gotten a smaller lock?
He's having some trouble with that.
I was about to say, could Eddie be more? I mean, I guess it's hard to get that rusty lock to push in there. Like that WD-40, that bad boy, before he got on TV live.
Could you imagine they had to pause the whole broadcast? They might have got in that WD-40.
Jesus Christ. Eddie Marlin down.
That's the
Lock
most
the damn door already.
That's the most intense battle on the show so far. It's him wrestling with that lock.
Eddie Marlin versus that master lock is going to be the best action we see today.
He went backstage and he was like, boys, you see, that's how you put something over. That was a battle out there. All I did was use my hands.
Could you that lock, my daughter would not even put that on her locker at school, or it would be broken into. That was the most flimsy lock I've ever seen in my life.
Yep, and the rustiest chain I've ever seen. I can't believe you'd put that on TV, that rusty ass chain. Here we go. We got a title match here on TV, and they're locked in. So clearly, guys, all this interference we've been having from Paul Neighbors lately, that's taken care of. We're going to see a nice, clean title match here.
You know, with all the problems they have with people like, you know, finding the key or losing the key on these cage matches, or, you know, one of the heels gets in and starts wreaking havoc, and they're trying to find the key to open the cage, and they always bumble. Why has there never been a combination lock?
CTE, pal. That's why.
I thought it was 14 to the left and 22 to the right. No, it's 22 to the left, 14 to the right.
Well, shit, I don't even remember what it was now.
Jeff, hurry up. Jeff's getting his brains beat out of there.
They never get it open.
And then he's like, well, I mean, technically, it's only 5 foot tall. We could do the whole, I put your foot in my hand and lift you over.
Just cut the damn lock. That's $5 I'll never see again.
Our next big angle is going to be two guys arguing over what the right combination is, and they finally have to settle it in, ironically, in a cage if they can get the lock off there and get in there.
Oh, man.
Yep, see, Dave is pointing out this cage has stopped the outside interference, so we've got a one-on-one title match inside this dog pen, guys.
Yeah,
Tommy Rich is just like a huge dude here, comparable to most of the people in USWA now. I mean, like before, when I was younger, I never looked at Tommy Rich as like, oh, he's a big guy. You know what I mean? But it's like seeing him in this era of USWA, he is a bigger dude. He probably put on. I'm not talking like calling him fat. He's just a big fella now. You know what I mean?
I love how Dave just a minute ago said they're the only two in that ring, causing Frank Morrell to look at him catty and going, I'm in here too, Dave.
Don't act like you can't see me. I might not have no neck, but I got everything else. Well, clearly we're calling in the ring, and we're calling chokes and eye rakes aplenty.
Does Tommy have something written on his tights?
It's a wildfire across the backside there.
You can't even see it. The font's on this.
Well, to be fair, he got those in the late 80s, right before his WCW return.
Yeah, he was definitely rocking those in '89 and WCW wrestling Lex Luger.
Did he have it? did he have the writing on him then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just the blue was a lot darker, so the white writing stood out against it.
Damn, I bleached my tights. My grandmother used to bleach some of my shirts sometimes on accident. I'd be like, why is everything brown? Well, you said it in there, it's his house. That's why I got bleached. My Hulk Hogan shirt's brown.
Now, wait a minute.
Oh,
Paul Neighbors is opening the cage, guys.
yeah. And what is he going to do? Toss a key in, which he could have done over the top of the cage.
Yeah, you got to get in to toss the chain. You could have pitched it over that freaking
Boom.
5-foot cage. Oh.
That was what.
Come on, Frank. Shit.
That was what made me laugh so hard. He opened the cage just to toss a chain over to them.
Yeah.
Come on, Frank.
He was literally like 4 inches closer than he was had he just tossed it over the top.
Frank's head makes him look like a huge penis.
Oh, shit. What?
And so now he rolls him over, and Frank's going to think he counted Tommy. Look at this. What a finish.
I love that. I absolutely love this. I rewound it, watching it back, just to because I thought I missed it all. And I was like, damn, that was smooth.
Well, I missed the boot. Like, I missed Jarrett getting hit. So I was like, why the hell is Jeff just laying there? Was he exhausted from swinging that chain fist?
Mad cowboy in the front row.
That's what I was like. That cowboy is pissed.
Thank
Bullshit, partner.
Thank God we got this cage, Tommy. Wait, why is Tommy talking to himself like that? This is my inner monologue.
And then he's going to try to talk.
All right, let's hear what's going on here.
When he grabbed that belt, all I could think of was, I'm the star.
You'll never live those words down.
The videotape, you don't even need to review it because he saw it live right here.
I said, that hat's weird.
That's the main reason I book these cage matches where it be no interference. I don't care who runs by. Yeah, Frank didn't see it.
They're basically giving Frank the nudge, just say, get the fuck out of here, Frank. We don't need your opinion here.
It's not going to be that way today, big boy. What now?
What now? I'm even confused about this finish, guys.
Frank's very nearsighted, and he didn't know who the fuck shoulders he just saw down.
He was staring at the mat.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, TD did count a pin on his back last week, so.
Oh, he's holding it up.
Oh, no.
Oh, the star is going to be the
referee. You know that's going to draw.
Loser has to take a late night drive with me.
Loser rides home with me.
No, that's a death sentence.
Okay, so in 2 weeks' time, 2 different USWA title matches hinged on the referee not looking at what they were counting. The only way to make this finish work is they have to count without looking at what they're doing. I don't know, like, I don't hate the finish. I like Josh said, it was executed well as far as the, hitting him and rolling him over and all that. But at the same time, it's like, all right, you've completely killed off the cage gimmick, because what purpose did the cage serve? Although, the explanation they give at some point is Paul Neighbors when he reffed, he used to drive the ring truck and he had the key to the cage. And he still had a key, which I thought, well, all right, that's pretty clever. Let's play up that he used to be a flunky. So,
even Dave, he had a key made when he was driving that ring truck around. He used to haul the ring, and I thought, like I said when we were talking, I thought it was excellent. It was something different. It actually they had to have thought about this and talked about it for longer than 5 minutes, which is a plus from what we have seen in the past.
I feel like somebody was being a turd in the punch bowl in the back, because regular Memphis would have been like, and how's the match going to end? Well, Paul Neighbors will have a key. He'll get in the ring. And then somebody was like, well, how's Paul Neighbors have a key? And like, you're really going to make us right this week, right? You're really going to make us plan something out. Okay. How does he have a key? Well, he used to carry the ring. Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean anything. We had to lock the trailer up, and we ain't buying more than one lock. Like, it shocked me how quick Dave had a story for this. It was like, this is what you put time and effort into.
So it's like, did Dave pull that out of his ass, or did somebody try to shoot it down in the back? And Randy Hales is on the toilet in the next room and go, I got it. Okay, here it is. This is why Neighbors has a key. And then he explains it, and they're like,
I was watching Matlock last night.
But here's the funny thing. He doesn't have to have a key at all. It's a 6-foot cage. Throw the chain over, and you still get your desired result.
No. I was with you. I was with you on that in the initial chain throwing, but the cage had to be unlocked for Neighbors to come in and hit Jarrett and roll the pin over, which was the crux of the whole finish. So no, he did have to get into the cage to do that. So we'll give him that much. I forgot to show this picture earlier. Here's Jeff and John Oates. Great.
You can be great too by buying one of these commemorative coins.
There's Tommy and Eddie Marlin about to square off there. Tommy rocking that lovely USWA Championship belt. My goodness. So there you have it, folks. The USWA title is held up pending a rematch with the Star, Eddie Marlin, as the referee. And ain't no bullshit going to happen if Eddie Marlin's in there. He's going to handle business.
Did you see him when he was talking towards the end of that segment? Somebody said something to him. He got fired up and pulled his pants up real high. Let me tell you something. If I'm going to whip some ass, my pants ain't going down. I'll tell you that much.
That's his Lawler pulling the strap down spot right there. Like, now when I get to the part where I pull my britches up, that's when y'all need to start leaving. That's when y'all need to know. Y'all know that it's getting real and it's time to leave the studio.
Master of Terror had that same rule. It's the opposite.
The britches go up, the shit goes down, if you know what I mean.
I thought it was when
that takes a whole different turn when you mention.
I thought it was britches go down, the shit
other way.
Britches go down, time to leave town.
All right, so then we get another promo from Lawler, who puts over the Grove at Ole Miss in Oxford. He talks about him and Jarrett down there hanging out the previous week and promotes the upcoming show in October there at Ole Miss. And then he talks about last week's Survivor Series match, which we now realize was not a Survivor Series match, and how it was a miscue from Tommy Rich that cost Tonto the unified title. And Lawler ends up getting the pin on the now previously undefeated Tonka. But I figure by WWF standards, this is just like one of those, if a tree falls in the woods, if a pin happens in Memphis, did it really happen? No, pal, it did not. We don't have to mention that ever again. So, second Lawler promo of the day. It's been a little bit since we got our two Lawler promo in on the USWA, and he got a little bit of softball talk in there, but not much. So next, cage match number 2, match number 5. All right, guys, let's watch this one. No.
Now, what are they going to do? Because now the integrity of the cage match has been sullied. The one match that it was supposed to stay shut and locked, now they know somebody out there has a key. Now might be the combination lock time, Gene.
Yeah, now one's like, all right, who's got their kid here? Do you have the combination lock from your school locker? Bring it out here. Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, too. Like, I wouldn't have really minded that finish on the other one if it was the only cage match of the day. But like you say, now we've completely, whatever little bit of integrity this dog pen had as a cage is now shot to hell. But we're going to try to convince us that, all right, so now Boss Paul's tag team, the dog catchers, are about to come out here and defend against the Moondogs. But he said on Scout's honor, he will not come out here and use his key that we already know that he has. So, I think we're good on this one, guys. We ain't going to have no problems.
They never brought the key back up. You feel like Eddie Marlin was so pissed off, he would be like, give me your key. Give me your damn key.
Pulled his pants up to his nipples, and Paul Neighbors just handed that damn key over. Like, all right, whoa. If I get these pants up over my head, it's just going to be an ass whooping, boy.
That's what pisses him off. It's the fact that center crease, like, taints his balls. You know, it's like
Exactly.
pisses him off. Like,
So, all right, we got the Moondogs and the dog catchers in a cage. We're going to talk a little bit more about this next week, but friend of the show, Steve Stone, messaged me, and he talked to Bill. What was the guy's name that wrestled Tommy Rich last week? Bill something another. I'm embarrassed. I don't remember the guy's name now that I've mentioned him.
it was like Bill Vick.
Bill Vick. Yeah, I wanted to say Bill Burr, but somehow I knew that wasn't right. But I wrestled Tommy Rich last week.
Fucking wrestling.
Give me a fucking backdrop.
I could barely read the Wildfire on the back of his pants. It's terrible. But anyway, he talked to that guy, and that fella confirmed what we're now been confirmed multiple times. There was a firing that happened, and at one point he ends up being a dog catcher. So we definitely are getting random multiple dog catchers. It's pretty much whoever can fit in those generic outfits week to week. But we'll talk a little bit more about that next week, because if we go too far into that story, we're going to spoil some things that are going to happen. We don't want to spoil this good stuff. So anyway, this thing they get in there, they get locked in the cage for what that's worth. And as to be expected, we get a few minutes of typical brawling from these guys. You know, they don't have their chairs in there. But anyway, eventually one of the dog catchers sprays something in the eyes of Moondog Cujo, and Mike Anthony just easily comes and hops over the fence like a kid going to his friend's house next door in the backyard, just hops the fence to go get in the pool. He comes in to help Cujo, who's now been blinded, and the match ends up getting called. 2 cage matches, and 2 cage matches, we completely negated the whole purpose of the cage. We've shown how useless it is. 2 convoluted finishes. Like I say, I could live with the first finish, but now when you threw this in the mix and you basically managed to give 2 non-finishes in cage matches on a TV show that we've bitched all year long about how there's no finishes on these things. So today, when they said we had a cage, I'm like, as absurd as the cage is, at least it's going to force their hand to do a couple of clean finishes. No, fuck me. We still don't have any clean finishes. And this turns into, now Eddie Marlin's back out here screaming again. We get more what the people want. We want more Eddie Marlin on our TV. We want some fiery Eddie Marlin promos. And Eddie Marlin comes out and lets us know that now this is going to lead to 6-man cage matches, the Moondogs and Richard Lee against the dog catchers and Boss Paul, former referee Paul Neighbors. But the titles will still be on the line, and even if one of the managers gets pinned, the titles will change hands. That's got to fire you up, right? That's exciting.
Kind of feels like what they should have done with Tonto and Jerry Lawler last week. You know, so it saves Tonto's. I feel like that's what we're calling him. It saves his.
Lawler certainly is. So.
It saves his undefeated streak, and he can still lose the title.
Yeah,
you know, but I mean, well, we got to protect the fucking dog catchers.
Yeah, we don't want to ruin the integrity of whoever's wearing that dog catcher outfit this week. I can't wait till one of them's clearly TD Steele under there. It was like TD Steele and the Freezer Thompson are the dog catchers this week. I don't remember those guys being. I know a lot of their bodies covered, but I'm pretty sure those are white dudes at one point. But
could you
this week?
Could you imagine that in the back? You know, that would be a discrimination lawsuit. Now, like, you can't do this gimmick. Why? Just because of your skin color. It's like,
a black man can't catch dogs? Is that what you're saying? Like, well, don't say it like that. It sounds even worse. But not what you're saying. Your voice. Don't say it like the voice.
But yeah, I mean, like, I remember. I think sometimes they've even let some people show up with a different costume. Because remember, they were wearing like sergeant's uniforms last week.
Oh, yeah. They were in fucking hospital scrubs the first week, weren't they?
Something like that. And then the picture on the screen on a couple of the weeks, I'm pretty sure were those intruder guys, because the mask had like the little weird shapes around the eyes. So I'm pretty sure the picture on the screen was the intruders. And then the same week that they showed that picture for the graphic for Mid-South Coliseum, they finally come out wearing these silly looking security guard outfits that I guess that's what dog catchers wear in their world. But But yeah, they've gone through a number of different looks, different sizes. I mean, my God, if you go back and watch that first week, the two guys that come out in no way resemble the guys that are out there with the titles a couple weeks later. I mean, it's just all over the place. Like I say, I think it would have been hilarious if you just had like, black guys, white guys, like really tall guys, really short guys, really skinny guys, really fat guys. It's just, and they could have made it, they could have really used it to put heat on Paul Neighbors and made that the whole crux of it. Is like Richard Lee, like, I know them ain't the same dog catchers that was out here last week. Some bitch, they was white. No, man, them's the same dog. Them's the same dog catchers. I ain't changed them not once. And it really would have been a way to been an excuse to have them wrestle every week, because each week, Dave Brown and them could just be incredulous, like, those aren't the same dog. Those look like the Road Warriors. That can't be the guys that were here last week. And that's the same ones. That's the champs right there, brother. I don't know about Richard Lee's talking for the fucking dog catchers now, but Giant Guns, oh my God. That would be amazing.
He's in the mask with Midget D as his tag partner.
Same outfit, but just with that mask stretched over half his head. It just comes to here. And his partner's Midget D. And, Midget D catcher.
They catch them all from Great Danes to Chihuahuas, Dave.
that really changes the aspect of that name too, if you call him Midget D catcher.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Speaking of D catchers, next up we got a ladies match here. We've got a little time left on the show. We realize it, so we're going to have Miss Texas taking on Brandy Wine, who turned up here. Wasn't she on the show many weeks ago against Miss Texas, like randomly, because she's married to the Master of Terror at this time, is what I'm told. Anyway, this match goes several minutes before ending in a time limit draw. So you could have just put Miss Texas over. She's going to be in a mixed tag match. But no, we can't even have a clean finish on the main event between two women, a woman who hasn't been on TV in weeks and probably won't be again for the rest of the year. It ends in a time limit draw.
It was like abrupt, though. There was no structure to it. Dave was like, all right, that's 3 minutes, 28 seconds. Ring that bell. Just out of
it felt like we realized we had too much time, and it's like, well, let's let those two women go out there. But then again, they were dressed, so I guess they were planning to let them wrestle the whole time, but I don't know. It just felt really thrown together. And it's not like you had to get out of the match quick to go down the card for Monday night, because there wasn't one, but they still killed a little bit of time after the match.
And Dave did kind of address that, like right after the break. He literally says, well, we could have just, had 3 minutes of us talking elongated or whatever he said. And then he's like, well, we figured we'd give you a wrestling action.
If y'all don't stop bashing this, BT's going to be mad at me for hating this.
I just hate that he gives the finish, because if we're out of time, I mean, just have her roll her up.
Yeah.
Go home. Like,
the thing that pisses me off about Memphis, like I said, is I don't feel like there's any thought put into this product. And if there is, it's not a lot. I think there was more thought brought up about why Paul Neighbors had a key this week than anything else. I think sometimes they just got in the back and was like, who's here? Okay, you can wrestle him. You can wrestle him. And why do I say that? Because that's the way it was fucking done when I was there. You know what I mean? It was like, why would they? That's not a new thing. That wasn't a new thing. They just said, who showed up for TV? Okay, we know the main people that are supposed to be here, the 3 or 4 that we're going to actually book for. And then the rest, you wrestle him, you wrestle him, you wrestle him. And that just, when I saw that in the back, that killed off anything. I was like, oh, it was kind of like an aha moment. This is what they've been doing for years.
Which isn't entirely true from what I've been told from people who were around in the USWA days. All the way back to the CWA days, that's the way it was done when Lawler was in charge. But if they had anybody else booking, it was, there was plans involved. But that when Lawler was in charge, Lawler would start thinking about what he's going to do either Friday night coming home from the spot show or driving to the studio on Saturday morning. Whoever was in the car with him, he would tell them, write this down. And then they would get there and see who was actually there and throw the matches together. But other times, and at this time, I didn't really think that Lawler was booking per se. I assumed that at one point here that Randy Hales had probably taken over and that maybe we'd start seeing a little more structure. Because for all the criticism people have of Randy Hales, at times he was a good booker. He did some good stuff. So when we've made jokes and different things, but the week that he showed up on TV during that pull apart, I'm like, all right, well, at least the TV aspect of this may start getting a little better and have a little more thought put into things. But then shit like this is like, okay, maybe not. Maybe we're just the way it's seemingly always been, or at least for this entire year. But
if it's anything like when I was there, 1 week it would be him, 1 week it would be Corey. So I can't imagine even if he didn't have the book, that he didn't show up some days and go, oh, no, this is what I want to do. And like I said, if that would be thought and plans, but like, it doesn't seem like there's any thought behind a lot of these angles. And I guess that's what bothers me, and we talked about it with the current product. We hated the current product until they could start writing something that was pretty good. Me and you kind of marked out the whole CM Punk, not CM Punk too, but the whole John Cena turn. Because it was something that was like, they put time and effort into this, it just, if they don't put time and effort into it, it just kind of bothers me,
Well, and the angle from Monday night with Punk and Rollins, Punk comes out there, he starts the show out hot. He comes out there, he starts cutting a promo. The way he delivers promos, you can tell that he's, this it may all be complete bullshit. It may all be what he was written, but it feels like he is saying what he really feels. The Rock was on the press conference on Saturday night saying these guys need to go out and say what they feel. And the next person we saw on television was CM Punk. And it felt like he was saying what he felt about The Rock amongst other people. But what I loved most about that is in the past in WWE, even with Punk and Rollins, who they have done a very good job for the last couple of years now, convincing us that even if all this other stuff's bullshit, CM Punk and Seth Rollins hate each other. They really, really, really don't like each other. But yet, musical play, somebody's in the ring talking, musical play, the other one will come out, and they'll stand 3 feet from each other and just talk shit into a microphone and never have a fight. This Sunday, I'm going to kill you, you son of a bitch, and then walk away. But Monday night, Punk makes that line about, Becky Lynch, come get your husband, or I'm going to put him in a wheelchair. Now, I don't love the fact they played Rollins' music because that makes it feel a little less genuine. Yeah. But you see Punk's face the minute Rollins' music hits. He doesn't stand there with a microphone and wait for Rollins to come out to have a debate. He jumps off that table and runs and meets him in the aisle, and they have what looks like a hellacious fight for a long period of time. And you actually had a crowd chanting, "This is awesome," for a freaking pull apart. And we talked about on this show how much I hate fucking pull aparts. I think they're useless because most of the time they're lazy and they're half-hearted. But it seemed like these two guys wanted to kill each other. And it was a really great way to start the show. I didn't particularly love any of the rest of the show. After that, I was like, well, fuck, I could have turned it off after that, But it was a great way to start the show, and it hooked me. It had its desired effect because I had no intention to watch Raw Monday night at all. Didn't even cross my fucking mind. Then you text me and said, hey, did you see that beginning of the Raw with Punk and Rollins? I was like, all right, I'll go check it out. And then it was so good. I'm like, well, hell, I might as well watch the rest of it. My wife was working late. She wasn't home anyway. I was like, screw it. I'll watch the rest of it. And then by the time it was over, it was like, oh, well, okay. Could have turned it off at the beginning. But still, it's a lot more well thought out. It's not easily predictable. Like we talked about, last week on the after show, usually, right where all the stuff's going. But going into that segment after the main event of Elimination Chamber, we didn't know what was about to happen with Rock and Cody and Cena and all that. And so, we desperately need some of that here in 93. We're all the way nearly to October. I don't know that they're going to pull the nose up on this thing, but we're here for the long haul, so we're going to see. But it's starting to get to where you wonder, when are we gonna do something with this stuff, and every time it feels like, all right, we're kind of moving in the right direction, then we do things like this where we kind of take a few steps back. But they, like you said, at least they gave enough thought to explain why did Paul Neighbors have a key, I just wish we'd only done one title match, because what they did with the Moondogs to me cheapened what they did with Rich and Jarrett, and it just made the whole thing feel like eye rolling. Like, what was the point of that shit type thing?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like we're driving along on this thing, and we just got enough gas to get us to the next town. So we hit the gas and we coast. We hit the gas and we coast. That's kind of what it feels like with USWA around this time. We hit the gas in some weeks and we're like, all right, we're turning a corner here. We're speeding down the road. And it's like, nope, let off that gas a little bit. Let's coast 15 miles at 12 miles per hour until Eddie pulls this thing into a ditch.
I was saying, then Eddie Marlin rolls the truck and then we're all in the hospital. So we don't have a card to run down for Monday night, and we don't have a would you go, but we're gonna have to ask our normal questions. So let's have our last commercial break here, and then we'll talk about the things you liked and didn't like about this show. Although I think we may have already, maybe we tipped off what we didn't like, but we'll make it official right after this.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/wrestlepod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise, this team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right. I like to whip out that commercial bumper every once in a while where Paul Neighbors just knocks Lawler flat on his ass. He's rocking his
you
motherfucker. So, all right. Well, let's answer the questions, guys. What was your least favorite part of today's show?
The Moondogs. Like, I'm over it. I'm over the Moondogs. When they say we've got the Moondogs here today, I'm always like, good Lord, why do we have the Moondogs here today? I mean, technically there was a lot worse things on the show. Let's be honest. I'm just picking low hanging fruit here, but the cage matches were bad, but they were comical, at least, with the rusty chain and the lock and the I've got a key and I got to throw it over. So a lot of that was funny, but Moondogs have become almost fast forward appointment, or hey, I got to refill my drink, or hey, I got to take a piss. Like, Moondogs to me are never strong, like as far as drawing me in, but this neutered, watered down, just the version of the Moondogs is even worse. So yeah, I'm done with them.
Josh.
So with me, even though it, I guess, had to play a part in the biggest part of the show, its overall effect was horrible. The cage itself, like I remember watching this specific episode as a child, and it was so confusing to me because I was like, why they got that goddamn cage up there like that the whole show? And it really took it out of it. Like, and I think what made it the worst was their expo. Well, these aren't cage matches because the door is open. I don't give a fuck. It is visually, not good. Like, and if it would have been just a foot taller or something, but it's so short, and it's like, I'm all for pretending because that's what wrestling is, right? But at the same time, I can only pretend so much. And then it's like, God damn, I could do this in my backyard.
And you're looking through the cage through every match, even the ones that theoretically aren't a cage match. You're having to watch it through the chain link, which was annoying too, in my estimation. But so yeah, just the cage match. They're the dog pen in general. All right, so here's a harder question. What was your favorite part of this show?
While I was sitting here just racking my brain to try to find something positive, I'll have to say Midget D was my favorite, because in this time and a date, you know, I love how, you know, nowadays midget's kind of like a slur word. So they basically Huck Finn this little guy. And I think we all know what we mean by Huck Finn and him. Or was it Tom Sawyer? Who was it that had the African American Jim guy?
What was his name in that book?
Jim. Anyways, they basically did that to Midget D, plus all the double entendres, the gaslighting that there's always been a midget. Like, everything about this was a mystery. It was a small mystery about where Midget D came from, and you know, what's his backstory. You know, where'd they get him from? You know, that was probably my favorite thing. And I'm reaching hard. I understand that, but Midget D, favorite thing.
So let the record show, folks, for episode number 43, Richard Mulligan loves him some Midget D. All right, Josh.
Mm-hmm. So, not only do I love it, I'm a member.
I'm a card carrying member.
Not just the president, he's also a client.
Mulligan is an Irish name, Gene.
Yeah, so mine, I did say before that I really liked the whole Tommy Rich and Jeff Jarrett angle, just that whole thing, man. With like I said, it there had to be some thought into it, and if we're doing that much thought for this one situation, hopefully that's going to keep happening and happen more. Well, maybe we'll think this much for 2 matches, you know, next week, and then it'll just blossom. But yeah, I appreciated the thought. It looked seamless. Like I said, I had to rewind to catch it all because it was so smooth. It just bang, bang, bang. And like a Easter egg in this whole show, man, during the Moondogs match, my second favorite thing was the fucking shoot that happened. So, like, I guess it was Cujo over in the corner. You know, he's with his dog catcher, and Spike is in the other corner fighting in the other one. And, like, you see Cujo push the dog catcher, and the dog catcher's, like, cement-footed, sandbagged. He's just like, I ain't moving. You can tell by the body. I'm not selling your shit. This is too far into the beginning. And you could see Cujo kind of, like, stand there for a second, and then he pushes him again. It don't work again. So he grabs him by the mask and he starts punching him. No foot stomping, real boom. 3 of them just bang, bang, bang. He does it right there as he's bent over. And then you would think it would be a front face lock. This motherfucker had a guillotine, a shoot guillotine. He fucking cranks on it, and you could see panic set in on the dog. I'm watching this. He starts panicking, fidgeting, trying to like fish around, get away, because he's gonna go out. I think that was Cujo's deal. You're gonna be rough with me on TV, motherfucker. I'm gonna put you out, then we'll start over. Well, he like gets tangled up in the ropes, and then he has to fall out in the corner. But he falls the fuck out. Like I was like, oh my god, this is great. I love this kind of stuff, especially on live TV.
Very perceptive there, because you know I said we weren't going to talk about it because we want to spoil it for next week. But we'll since you spotted it and mentioned it, we'll go ahead and address it here. So that's why we end up with new dog catchers. This whole deal ends up with those dog catchers end up getting one gets fired, the other one quits. I guess is a show of solidarity or whatever. Cujo either ends up getting fired or quits because you're not going to see him after today. Mike Anthony is going to be a stand-in Moondog. No, don't guess too soon. We just put Mike Anthony in as a replacement Moondog for.
How fast can you grow your hair?
We put two new people under the dog catcher mask. We put Mike Anthony in Cujo's spot, and so I'm not going to say what happens, but I will admit for the first time in this entire year of us doing this, that made me wonder, are we about to be rid of the Moondogs? So I looked ahead. And just stick around. It's not good. Anyway, so no, we're not rid of the Moondogs, but part of your complaint is going to be addressed. That's all I'm going to say. Just stick around. All right, so we don't have a Monday night card to run down, but I did come across in the Observer a spot show from the 23rd, which would have been 2 nights before this one. And I just want to run through this real quick to kind of give you an idea of, we know we have the big towns, the Evansvilles, the Louisvilles, the Nashvilles that get a version of the same card as close as they can get. But then we get spot shows where it's just whatever the guy who's booking the town can throw together. So listen to this spot show. Brighton, Tennessee, September 23rd. Mike Anthony beats Ron McClarty. The American Eagle, Ken Wayne, beats Billy McCullough. Now, this is where it gets interesting to me. Brandywine beats Miss Texas. The Rock and Roll Phantom #1, Don Bass, beats King Cobra. And in the main event, Rock and Roll Phantom #2, that we don't know who he is, whoever sent in the results couldn't figure out who it was, but they pinned the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett. On spot shows, we normally send them home happy and just put the baby faces over. We have a sweep of 3 heels going over. Brandywine beats Miss Texas. Rock and Roll Phantom 1 beats King Cobra. And then Rock and Roll Phantom 2, that we don't even know who the hell it is, pins Jeff Jarrett. What in the hell is that? That
Eddie Marlin must have been like, Ken, you can start running some little shows to the side and just get some guys some work throughout the week. That had
to be a Buddy Wayne town, right? Because Ken Wayne goes over, his wife goes over, Don Bass goes over, and then some rando, which it might have been Ken Wayne in a different outfit, pinned Jeff Jarrett. I don't know who Rock and Roll Phantom 2. And knowing them, Rock and Roll Phantom may have just walked out there again, and they just said it was #2. It was Don Bass both times.
Looking all sweaty and tired.
Okay.
And Jeff so took out of it. Oh, fuck it. Let him beat me, too.
It's like, that wasn't fabulous, but whatever. There's 80 people here. I don't give a shit.
Imagine the booker was like, you can't have Return of the Jedi without the Empire Strikes Back. Now we got to have everybody lose.
When I seen Ken Wayne and Brandywine both won, I'm like, this had to be a Buddy Wayne town, right? Like, surely. Nothing real interesting to come out of the Observer notes. They just mentioned that Randy Savage is coming in. They still speculate that, especially based on what Lawler said in today's promo about if Vince McMahon comes down here, he'll have a fireball waiting on him. They think Vince McMahon's going to come to Memphis and eventually wrestle Lawler. They came to our same conclusion where they said the 925 television show pretty much killed the entire cage match gimmick for Memphis for the rest of their lives. Said several matches were held in a cage, all of which had outside interference, and then they go on to explain what happened, why, and the reasoning behind it. Then they talk about the breakup angle with Brian and Miss Simpson and how and why it came back together with them together. And then this was interesting. I wanted to make mention of this. You don't see them print a lot of retractions in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, but they put, several people have written in to let us know that the spellbinder here is not Del Wilkes, aka the Patriot, as has been reported here several times. It is actually a new wrestler named Del Rios. And that's all they put. They didn't apologize or explain why they got it wrong. But the fact they even acknowledged they got it wrong, I thought was, all right, that's different at least. They don't usually do that. So there you go. The spellbinder is not Del Wilkes, the Patriot. It's Del Rios.
Where was he at this week?
I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe since they weren't going to have a Monday night card, maybe he was pissed that he showed up and got painted up last week. He didn't get to wrestle. He lost to Bull Payne last Monday night. We read that in the results. So, he may have been like, screw this, I'm going back to New York. And then Vince had to talk him down off the ledge, perhaps. I don't know. But he'll be back. We do know that. Actually, honestly, I'm guessing, the story's always been he shows up. He's had one match in his life. It was a dark match at Raw. And Lawler loves the gimmick, puts him out there on TV that first week, which, like again, we said wasn't a bad match. And then I forgot who he worked that week. I think maybe it was Reggie B or something. And then last week he lost to Bull Payne. And then Lawler comes to him, and Dale has told this story numerous times. Lawler comes to him and goes, "Look, you're too green for this gimmick. Like, this is going to be a good gimmick, but you're not experienced enough to pull it off. Let's drop the gimmick, get you some experience, and then we can bring it back later." And then all of a sudden, here in the next couple of weeks on TV, we're going to see him show up as Del Rios. Now, why they decided that Del Rios needed to wrestle in like Daisy Dukes and a lumberjack flannel shirt, I have no idea. I mean, he ends up being managed by Burt Prentice, so maybe that had something to do with it.
That was my guess.
But yeah, he's going to come out here and cut off, like, not just cut offs, not jorts like John Cena, Daisy Dukes like Stevie Richards in ECW in '96, and a freaking flannel shirt. He'll be Del Rios for just a while, and then he goes back to being the Spellbinder. So I'm guessing maybe that they decided before he just shows back up as Del Rios, we'll pull him off TV altogether for a couple weeks. Maybe people will forget, even though Corey, his first week, called him Del Rios instead of the Spellbinder at the opening of the show. So anyhow, so that does it for this week. Like I said, kind of strange to not have a Monday night card to build up to, but we'll definitely have one to talk about next week. I think, Richard, you're going to be on assignment somewhere else next week. So we'll be having Coach BT sit in from stspod.club. Make sure you go there and check out all the wonderful podcasts that our friend Brian Trimble puts out there. And also check out P3 Radio, the fun show these guys put out every week without fail for like 12 years now. It's been around forever. It's never going away. So make sure you check it out. It's always a lot of fun. You think they say some questionable stuff here, boy, you ought to listen to that show. It's a lot of fun. So also make sure you subscribe, rate, and review this show wherever you are getting it from, whatever podcast outlet you are listening to it. Please help us out with that. Also, WrestleCopia.com. You can check out all the great shows there that Ray Russell puts out at WrestleCopia.com. And for all things related to this show, including our merch store, all the different social medias, you can go to USWApodcast.com. And based on the large smile on Richard's face, I know he's waiting for me to plug. 256 Egg Iron is where you can leave us a voicemail. You can even send us a text, however you choose to reach out and do it there. Anything else, guys, before we wrap this one up?
I don't think so.
All right. I didn't know if you wanted to dunk on the Moondogs one last time before we shut her down this week. But I think everybody gets it. You're not a fan of the Moondogs.
He knows Cujo will come over the house and kick that ass.
It's like 75 now, probably, isn't he?
Tell Cujo that to his face, son. I don't think Cujo's still with us. Pretty sure. Almost 99.9% sure. But somebody will hear this and my inbox will blow up after Wednesday of people letting me know that either Cujo is or is not still alive. But I'm pretty sure he's not.
Dogs tend to have a shorter lifespan than humans, so.
And with that, we will see you again next week for more Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast.